As she dropped the money, something strange happened. For a brief moment, she saw the boy transform into an older man with burning red eyes. She blinked, and it was gone. In the village of Ugoro, where everyone worked hard on their farms, life was simple and busy. Every morning, the sound of hoes and machetes echoed through the fields as families worked to feed themselves. But there was one young man, Chigozie, who didn't follow the same routine. "Chigozie, wake up," his mother called, worried. "The sun is high in the sky, and you're still sleeping." Chigozie groaned, pulling his blanket tighter around him. "Leave me alone, Mama. It's too early." "It's nearly 12. Everyone else has been working on the farm since daybreak," his mother said, frustrated. "Let them farm. I'm not interested in breaking my back," Chigozie mumbled, still half asleep. "And how do you plan to eat if you don't work? Do you think food will fall from the sky?" "Don't worry, Mama. I'm smart, and I have big plans. I'll find an easier way to make money." "Being smart won't put food on the table," his mother said, shaking her head. "Look at Daniel, your friend. He started farming 3 years ago, and now he has plenty of food to feed his family and even to sell." Chigozie laughed. "Daniel? That fool who wakes up at 4 a.m. just to dig in the dirt. I'm not doing that," he said as he walked out of the house. Later that day, Chigozie sat under a mango tree, playing chess with some older men. Papa Ugoro, one of the elders, tried to talk to him. "Young man," Papa Ugoro said, moving his chess piece, "what are your plans for the future?" "I've got big plans, Papa," Chigozie said confidently. "Very big plans." "Like what?" the elder asked. "I'm thinking about business, buying and selling things to make quick money." Papa Nduka, another elder, shook his head. "There's no such thing as easy money, my son. Hard work is what brings success." "That's what you old people always say," Chigozie mumbled, barely paying attention. As the day ended, Chigozie saw his friends returning from the farms, tired but with baskets full of vegetables and yams. His stomach growled, reminding him that he hadn't eaten all day because his mother refused to cook for him. "They have food, so why can't I?" he thought. That's when an idea struck him. He could steal from the farms at night. His first stealing was from Chibuzo's farm. That night, under the cover of darkness, Chigozie snuck onto the farm and dug up several large yams from the ground. "This is way easier than farming," he thought, carrying the stolen crops home. "Let them work while I take what they've grown." For weeks, Chigozie kept up with the stealing. During the day, he would sleep or play chess, and at night, he would steal from different farms. But soon, the farmers began to notice their crops were disappearing. One afternoon, a group of farmers gathered at the village square to discuss the problem. "Something has to be done," Obina said. "Last week, I lost 10 yams. This week, it's my cassava." Chibuzo nodded. "The same thing is happening to me. I noticed someone had been digging in my yam heap just yesterday." "We need to catch this thief," Okichukwu added. "How do we do that?" Chibuzo asked. Okonkwo, another farmer, spoke up. "I know how to make special traps. They won't hurt the thief, but they'll hold him until we catch him." "Are you sure they won't be dangerous?" Chibuzo asked. "Yes, the traps will only catch his legs. It'll hurt, but it won't kill him." The farmers agreed to set the traps that evening. Chigozie, aware of the plan, was hiding nearby, overhearing everything. "Traps," he thought. "They think I'm stupid. I'll just avoid them." That night, he went to Okonkwo's farm, confident that he would outsmart the farmers. The moon was hidden behind clouds, making it perfect for his stealing. "These old men think they're clever," he whispered to himself. But as he pulled up his third yam, a trap caught his leg. Pain shot through his body. "Ah!" he screamed, forgetting to be quiet. "Help! Help! Someone help me!" His screams woke the nearby farmers, who quickly rushed to the scene with lanterns. When they saw who had been caught, there was a shocked silence. "Chigozie," Okonkwo said, his face full of surprise. "You're the thief." "I can explain," Chigozie stammered, but Eza, one of the farmers, cut him off. "Explain what? How you've been stealing the crops we've worked hard to grow?" Eza said angrily. They tied Chigozie's hands and led him through the village in shame. Children followed, laughing and pointing at him. The women standing in their doorways shook their heads in disappointment. "Shame on you, Chigozie," they called. "Shame on the son who brings disgrace to his mother." At their house, his mother stood, tears streaming down her face, as she watched her son being paraded in front of the entire village. After Chigozie was released from his shameful public parade, he couldn't stay in the village any longer. That evening, feeling the weight of everyone's judgment, he packed his few belongings into a small bag. "Mama," he said softly, finding his mother in the kitchen, "I'm leaving for the city." His mother didn't even look up from her cooking. "Running away from your shame won't make it disappear, my son." "I'm not running away," Chigozie replied, trying to sound confident. "I'm going to the city to make something of myself. There are plenty of opportunities there. I'll come back rich, and no one will remember this." His mother finally turned to face him, her eyes filled with concern. "The city won't change who you are, Chigozie. Your laziness will follow you wherever you go." "You're wrong, Mama. You'll see. I'll prove everyone wrong," Chigozie said, determined. But life in the city was much harder than Chigozie had imagined. His first job was as a security guard at a small supermarket. The owner, Mr. James, gave him clear instructions. "Just stay awake and watch the shop at night," Mr. James said. "Can you do that?" "Of course," Chigozie answered confidently. "That's easy." But on the fifth night, tired and bored, Chigozie fell asleep at his post. While he slept, thieves broke into the shop and took everything of value, including the money. The next morning, Mr. James was furious. "You had one job," Mr. James shouted, his face red with anger. "One simple job. How could you sleep on duty?" "I'm sorry, sir," Chigozie said, kneeling on the ground, ashamed. "Night work is too hard. Can't I work during the day instead?" "Get out. You're fired," Mr. James yelled. Chigozie left the supermarket, but he didn't give up. His next job was as a cleaner in an office building. Madam Esther, the supervisor, showed him the roles. "Sweep and mop all the floors, clean the windows, empty the trash bins," she explained. "It's not difficult." But Chigozie found ways to avoid work. He would sneak into empty offices and take naps. After 3 days, Madam Esther found him sleeping in one of the executive offices. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded, her hands on her hips. "Just taking a short break," Chigozie said, trying to act casual. "A short break? You haven't done any work today. Pack your things and leave." Madam Esther snapped. Chigozie was fired again. His next job was as a waiter, but he was let go for being rude to customers. He tried working at a car wash, but after he scratched an expensive car in his rush to finish, he was fired once more. Years passed, and Chigozie grew older, but not wiser. He could barely afford to eat. His dreams of a better life in the city had faded, and one day, after losing yet another job, he decided to return to the village. Maybe things have changed, he thought. Maybe they've forgotten about the stealing. But, as he approached the village, he was surprised. Everything had changed. The once familiar mud huts with thatched roofs were replaced by sturdy block houses with shiny zinc roofs. Confused and uneasy, he wandered until he spotted an elderly man sitting by the roadside. It was Papa Oke, the same elder Chigozie had spent countless afternoons playing chess with as a child. "Papa Oke," he called out cautiously. The old man squinted at him, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "Chigozie, is it really you? My boy, you've changed." "Papa, what happened to our village? It's so different," Chigozie stammered. Papa Oke chuckled, pride evident in his voice. "Ah, our children happened. They went to the city, worked hard, and brought their success back home. Look around. This is their doing." "Who are you talking about?" "Obinna. Do you remember him? That scrawny boy who used to work on his father's farm? He's now a big car dealer in the city. And Adora, that little girl who sells a bacha at the market? She's a powerhouse in the cosmetics business." Chigozie's chest tightened with every name. These were the same people he had left behind, the ones he never thought much of. Now they were thriving, and he wasn't. Later, he learned his mother had passed 2 years earlier, and the weight of his failures grew heavier. That evening, at a village gathering, the questions came fast and unrelenting. "Chigozie, tell us about life in the city," one of the elders asked. Chigozie hesitated. How could he admit the truth? His empty pockets and worn clothes screamed failure. I own a company," he lied, forcing a confident smile. "A very big one. So big I've barely had time to visit." The crowd murmured with approval. Chief Eaz leaned forward, intrigued. "Really? What kind of company?" "Oh, you know," Chigozie stammered. "Import and export, busy work. Very demanding." "You should invest here," another elder suggested. "Create jobs for our youth." Yes, Chigozie replied quickly, eager to end the conversation. "I'm already planning on that. Soon, very soon." But that night, alone in the modern guest room they had graciously offered him, Chigozie tossed and turned. Jealousy gnawed at his insides like a hungry beast. How did these children succeed while I failed? He whispered into the darkness. It's not fair. By dawn, he'd made up his mind. He slipped out of the house and headed into the forest, his steps quick and determined. Everyone knew about Ugoro, the dreaded spiritualist who lived deep in the woods. Few dared to approach him, but desperation made Chigozie fearless. After hours of trekking, he arrived at the eerie hut. Ugoro sat outside, his piercing eyes fixed on Chigozie as if he'd been expecting him. So, the jealous one has come, the spiritualist rasped. Chigozie swallowed hard. I need your help. The people in my village, they've all surpassed me. I can't take it anymore. I want them to fail. I want them to lose everything. Okoro's eyes gleamed in the dim light. Are you certain? What you ask comes at a cost. I don't care about the cost, Chigozie snapped. I want them brought down. The spiritualist nodded, disappearing into his hut. When he returned, he held a small pot filled with dark liquid and a strange, yellow calabash. Drink this potion, Ugoro instructed. Chigozie didn't hesitate. He downed the bitter liquid in one gulp. When you return to the village, Ugoro explained, you will appear as a young beggar boy. Anyone who places money in this calabash will be cursed with failure. But remember, Ugoro's voice dropped and his tone turned icy. The calabash must never touch water. What happens if it does? Chigozie asked, his voice trembling slightly. The spiritualist's lips curled into a sinister smile. You don't want to find out. Back in the village, Chigozie had indeed transformed into a small boy. He sat by the marketplace, holding out his calabash to passers-by. Please help a poor beggar, he would say in a tiny voice. The villagers were kind to him. Women would bring him food, and men would sometimes give him old clothes. But Chigozie waited patiently for his real targets. The successful ones who had returned from the city during the New Year festival. They arrived in their expensive cars. Obina was the first to approach him. Poor boy, Obina said. Where are your parents? Dead, Chigozie replied, trying to look sad. Please help me, sir. Obina dropped several naira notes into the calabash. Here, get yourself something to eat, and if you want, I can help you find a school to attend. Thank you, sir, Chigozie said, secretly smiling at what was about to happen to Obina. Next came Adora, looking elegant in her expensive clothes. She stopped and studied him carefully. A child shouldn't be begging, she said. You should be in school, learning. As she dropped the money, something strange happened. For a brief moment, she saw the boy transform into an older man with burning red eyes. She blinked, and it was gone. Did you see that? She asked a woman standing behind her. See what? Nothing, just thought I saw something strange. My eyes must be playing tricks on me. One by one, all the successful villagers dropped money into Chigozie's calabash. After the festival, they all traveled back to the city, and strange things began happening to them. Obina's car dealership started losing customers. Cars would mysteriously break down right after being sold, leading to demands for refunds. I don't understand, he lamented. We've been checking these cars thoroughly before selling them. How can they all suddenly have problems? Adora's cosmetics business faced similar problems. Her products began causing allergic reactions in customers, something that had never happened before. This is impossible, she said, looking at yet another returned shipment. We haven't changed our formula. How can this be happening? Other businesses owned by villagers also started failing mysteriously. Within months, many were forced to return to the village, their dreams shattered. One day, Adora's friend named Stella visited the city. What are you doing back in the village? Stella exclaimed when she saw her friend. What happened to your business? Everything just went wrong, Adora said, fighting back tears. And it's not just me. Everyone from our village who was successful in the city has somehow failed. Everyone. Stella asked, her eyes widening. That's not normal. This has to be a spiritual attack. A spiritual attack? Adora laughed bitterly. Come on, Stella, this is real life, not a movie. Listen to me, Stella insisted. I've seen this before. When too many bad things happen at once, especially to people from the same place, it's usually spiritual. You need to come with me to see my pastor. I don't know. Adora hesitated. I don't really believe in all that. What do you have to lose? Stella asked. Your business has failed. What's the harm in trying? The next day, they visited Pastor Isaiah's church in the city. As soon as Adora entered, the pastor looked at her intently. "I see a dark cloud over your village," he said. "There's an evil presence there, an old beggar who is not what he seems." "An old beggar?" Adora asked, confused. "The only beggar in our village is a small boy who sits by the market." "Tell me about this boy," Pastor Isaiah said. "Well, they say he just appeared one day. Nobody knows where he came from. He sits by the market with a yellow calabash, asking for money." Pastor Isaiah's eyes widened. "A yellow calabash, you say? Did anything strange happen when you gave him money?" Adora thought for a moment. "Actually, yes. When I dropped money in his calabash, I thought I saw— No, it's too crazy." "Nothing is too crazy," Pastor Isaiah insisted. "Tell me what you saw." "For just a second, I thought I saw the boy change. He had wings and red eyes, but when I blinked, he was just a small boy again. We must go to your village immediately. This is worse than I thought." "What do you mean?" Adora asked. "That boy is not a boy at all. He's a demonic being, and his calabash is collecting more than just money. It's stealing people's destinies. Your businesses didn't just fail by accident," Pastor Isaiah explained. "Someone is behind it. Someone who couldn't stand to see others succeed." They gathered a team of prayer warriors and headed to Ugoro village the next morning. As they entered the village, Pastor Isaiah began praying loudly. "In the name of Jesus," he shouted, raising his hands to the sky. Suddenly, dark clouds gathered above. Thunder roared across the sky and rain began to fall. By the marketplace, Chigozie panicked when he saw the rain coming. "No, no," he cried, trying to cover his calabash, but it was too late. A drop of rain touched the calabash and it burst into flames. "Help me," he screamed, but his voice was no longer that of a boy. The small beggar boy transformed into the older Chigozie, his body writhing in pain as the burning calabash released all the stolen luck and success it had captured. "It's me," he cried out. "I did it. I cursed everyone because I couldn't stand their success. I'm a failure, and I wanted everyone else to fail too." The villagers watched in horror as his body seemed to burn with invisible flames until nothing was left but ashes. Gradually, the successful villagers felt a weight lifting from their shoulders. The fog that had clouded their minds cleared and their determination returned. "I can feel it," Adora said, hugging Stella. "The heaviness is gone. Thank you, my friend, and thank you, Pastor Isaiah." "The curse is broken," Pastor Isaiah announced. "Your destinies have been restored." In the following weeks, the young people returned to the city, ready to rebuild their lives. Their businesses gradually recovered, and soon they were flourishing again. Adora's cosmetics company rebounded stronger than ever. Obina's car dealership regained its reputation, and customers returned in even greater numbers. Always seek divine guidance before helping strangers. To understand their true motives, by inviting spiritual discernment, you can ensure your money does not become a tool for someone else's harmful agenda. Please share the lessons you learned from this story. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in my next video. Goodbye.